Mei Lin's life of luxury came crashing down literally when a high-speed Maserati crash in Sydney exposed secrets no one could have imagined. Behind the glamorous facade of a Chinese heiress lay a web of false identities, hidden fortunes, and a criminal network spanning continents. What began as a simple accident revealed a shocking truth the world wasn't ready for. The night was unusually quiet in Sydney's eastern suburbs when a black Maserati flew down a narrow residential street, its engine roaring as if it were racing against time itself. Neighbors later recalled hearing the screech of tires moments before the crash. At exactly 11:47 p.m., the luxury car slammed into a large tree, its front end crushed like paper under the force of impact. Emergency services arrived quickly, expecting another case of reckless driving. But what they discovered inside changed the course of the entire investigation. Behind the wheel sat a young woman in her 20s, her clothes torn from the accident, but unmistakably designer. Diamond earrings still clung to her ears, and her wrist carried a watch worth more than the average Sydney home. She introduced herself as Mei Lin, a wealthy visitor from China. The paramedics, while checking her injuries, noticed the faint smell of alcohol. But more curious was the array of items in her handbag, several passports, each bearing her photo but different variations of her name. At first, police assumed Mei was simply another privileged heiress enjoying her family's fortune overseas. Her accent was polished, her manner calm despite the wreck. Yet when officers ran her information, they stumbled upon inconsistencies. The passport she presented showed she had entered Australia only days before, but her credit cards indicated she had been living in Sydney for weeks. Hospital staff found her possessions puzzling: multiple foreign currencies, casino chips from Macau and Melbourne, and shopping receipts for expensive jewelry bought under different aliases. None of it fit neatly into the life of an ordinary tourist. What seemed like an unfortunate accident quickly transformed into a case full of unanswered questions. Why was a young woman carrying so many identities? How had she afforded a car that even seasoned business people considered a rare purchase? Police secured the Maserati for further examination, and their suspicions grew stronger when they found a small, locked metal case tucked beneath the passenger seat. The crash was supposed to be the end of a reckless drive, but instead, it became the beginning of a mystery that exposed a hidden life of wealth, deception, and international intrigue. The heiress, shaken but alive, had no idea the crash would unravel everything she had worked so hard to conceal. Police wasted no time in digging into Mei Lin's background, hoping to piece together the truth behind her wealth and shifting identities. The first step was tracing the origins of her finances. What they discovered shocked even seasoned investigators. Mei's bank accounts were scattered across the globe, many of them linked to offshore companies registered in tax havens. Funds moved in and out at alarming speed, often transferred in the dead of night, and within hours disappeared into casinos, luxury auctions, or high-value art galleries. The pattern suggested deliberate attempts to disguise the origins of the money. At first glance, it could have been the activity of a spoiled heiress, yet something about the sheer scale and precision felt far more calculated. Her family background raised even more questions. Officers expected to find her tied to an established business dynasty in China, but there were no official records linking her to any recognized corporate empire. Her surname carried no weight among the families known for old money and generational power. When investigators reached out discreetly through international contacts, they received confusing responses. Some insisted she came from a wealthy household, while others denied she existed altogether. It became clear that Mei's life story had been built on shadows. Meanwhile, forensic experts combed through the wrecked Maserati. The small locked case found inside was opened under strict supervision, and its contents deepened the mystery. Inside were encrypted USB drives and stacks of documents written in Mandarin, many of which referenced international trade deals, but details were inconsistent, dates did not align, and signatures were clearly forged. It appeared less like genuine paperwork and more like a cover for hidden transactions. The documents hinted at the use of front companies to ship luxury goods across borders, a known tactic for laundering money under the guise of legitimate business. The police realized they were no longer dealing with a simple accident involving a rich visitor. Instead, the crash had handed them a potential gateway into a complex network of international financial crime. What unsettled them most was how carefully Mei had managed to live undetected until now. The wreck had torn open the carefully stitched seams of her double life. Each clue pointed to a woman who wasn't just wealthy, but possibly a key player in something much larger, an operation that had crossed borders, avoided detection, and thrived in plain sight. The media caught wind of the story almost instantly. A glamorous young woman, a foreign heiress, crashing a car worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in Sydney was irresistible to tabloids and news outlets. Headlines painted her as a mysterious beauty with endless wealth, but behind the glossy photographs, the investigation was moving in a much darker direction. Detectives began following the paper trail left behind by the documents and USB drives taken from the Maserati, and each discovery pulled them deeper into an intricate web of deception. Several companies linked to Mei Lin's aliases were registered overseas, yet when authorities attempted to contact the directors, they were either unreachable or confirmed to have died under suspicious circumstances in recent years. It was as though every person tied to her world vanished as soon as scrutiny arrived. Interpol soon flagged her history of frequent travel across Europe and Southeast Asia. Her pattern revealed more than just luxury vacations. It revealed an itinerary aligned with major gambling hubs, high-profile art auctions, and discreet financial centers. She seemed to appear in places where vast sums of money quietly changed hands, and just as quickly, she disappeared. The crash in Sydney, however, had broken her rhythm. Investigators now had physical evidence she could not simply abandon or destroy. As detectives pieced together her connections, another disturbing fact emerged. Some of the companies traced through the encrypted files had previously been suspected of smuggling cultural artifacts and rare gems out of Asia. Operations thought to be linked to organized crime. Mei's name was never mentioned directly, but her presence lingered around every suspicious transaction. Sydney police realized that they might have stumbled into something bigger than they could manage alone. What unsettled them most was how smoothly she had navigated through different countries, slipping past authorities who never questioned her lavish faud. While the press celebrated her as a fallen socialite, behind closed doors investigators began to treat her as a serious threat. They could not ignore the possibility that she was part of a global syndicate that used luxury goods, casinos, and art markets as covers for laundering vast amounts of illicit money. Every new lead suggested careful planning, a life designed to stay 2 steps ahead of the law. The car crash that had nearly taken her life was also the very thing that had cracked open her carefully guarded world, revealing a woman who was far more than what she seemed. The breakthrough in the investigation came when digital experts finally managed to decrypt the files hidden on Mei Lin's USB drives. The process took weeks, but the outcome was worth every painstaking hour. Inside the folders were vast spreadsheets filled with coded transactions, each one linked to luxury dealers, art galleries, and casinos across multiple continents. The figures were staggering, with billions appearing to move through these networks. On the surface, the money appeared legitimate, disguised as art purchases, real estate investments, or jewelry imports. But once investigators compared the amounts with customs and auction records, it became clear that most of these deals had never actually taken place. The numbers were false, created to hide dirty money under the guise of legitimate trade. Buried deeper in the drives was the detail that shocked everyone. Mei Lin was not her real name. Investigators discovered multiple forged passports tied to her, each with different variations of her identity. Some had been issued nearly a decade earlier, suggesting she had been living under false personas for years. Governments from different regions had unknowingly welcomed her through their borders, never realizing that the heiress they believed they were admitting was nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. Her true name was missing from every official record. It was as if she had erased her original life and replaced it with a fabricated empire. The ripple effect in Sydney was immediate. Once the files became known to higher authorities, several luxury shops and art galleries in the city were forced to shut their doors. Investigators had traced suspicious transactions back to them, and their owners, once respected figures in elite circles, were suddenly under suspicion. One prominent casino reported massive financial irregularities, raising the possibility that Mei's operation had been using it as a hub to cleanse illicit funds. It became evident that she was never acting alone. Behind her was a network that thrived on secrecy, a machine built to survive by exploiting wealth, glamour, and the blindness of institutions dazzled by money. What startled investigators most was the realization that Mei had lived freely for years, attending parties, mingling with billionaires, and buying extravagant goods, all while concealing the fact that her fortune was nothing more than smoke and mirrors. The crash had ripped apart the mask. revealing her not as a victim of reckless living, but as a central figure in one of the most sophisticated financial webs authorities had ever encountered. In the weeks following the Sydney crash, Mei Lin's case dominated international headlines. News outlets called her the mysterious heiress, a figure of glamour, wealth, and deceit. Authorities worked tirelessly to prepare charges for money laundering, identity fraud, and other financial crimes. Every lead, every decrypted file, pointed to a network operating across continents. Investigators were certain they were close to dismantling it. Yet, just when it seemed the heiress would finally be held accountable, something completely unexpected occurred. While under hospital supervision, Mei vanished. Security footage showed a brief, unexplained power outage in her ward. When the lights flickered back on, her bed was empty. Panic spread through the hospital staff. Every exit was sealed, every hallway checked, but there was no trace of her. Authorities speculated that her network had orchestrated the disappearance, slipping her out before she could face formal questioning. Airports were immediately placed on high alert, yet she was never detected boarding any commercial flight. Private watercraft, hidden vehicles, or underground transport routes were all possibilities. Mei Lin had disappeared as mysteriously as she had arrived. The disappearance left investigators and the public with more questions than answers. Who had helped her escape? How deep did her network really run? Could she still be hiding in Australia under another identity? Or had she fled overseas, disappearing entirely from the reach of law enforcement? Speculation ran wild in the media, with some theorizing that she had returned to China, her true homeland, while others believed she remained in plain sight, continuing her operations under a new guise. Even without her physical presence, Mei's influence lingered. Authorities began uncovering connections to recent international financial crimes that matched the methods she had used in Sydney. Some luxury dealers and casino operators quietly shut down, unwilling to risk exposure. Government agencies in multiple countries launched internal investigations. Realizing that the heiress's disappearance was not just a local matter, it was a ripple effect in a vast network of illicit wealth. The Sydney car crash, once thought to be a simple accident, had exposed the cracks in a carefully constructed life built on false identities and hidden fortunes. Mei Lin, the glamorous figure who had captivated the city's imagination, had vanished before justice could reach her. What remained was a story of deception, audacity, and a network so sophisticated it defied capture. The world was left to wonder if the heiress would ever resurface, or if she had truly vanished into the shadows, leaving behind only the legacy of a life built on secrets and lies.